Welcome to this video in the Getting the Most Out of Resolve series. And in this video, we're going to be looking at add-ins. First of all, considering what they are, why they're useful, and how to actually use them. So we're going to start with just a couple of slides to work through some of the principles of Resolve add-ins. And then we're going to spend most of this demo looking at the usage of them and with 3 or 4 examples to guide you through the sort of steps you go through to use them. So let's start first of all by looking at what is an add-in. So first of all, to say add-ins are only available in the Resolve Premium version. They're not available in the Resolve Base. It's a small fee to upgrade to Premium from Base. But if you have Resolve Premium, you'll be able to do all the things that I show you in this demonstration. So let's go on and talk about what they are. Well, what they are, perhaps the definition I like, is that they're tools that allow you to extend the functionality of Resolve. And I think that's quite important. There's many tabulation systems out there on the market and allow you to do tables, charts, whatever it might be. But add-ins allow you to extend what you can do in Resolve. And more than that, they allow you to extend it almost infinitely and certainly beyond pretty much every other software package that's used for analysis of surveys. So a really important thing is that you can sort of extend them to how you want them to behave for your team or your customers. When you upgrade to Resolve Premium, you get over 20 free add-ins immediately available. So that's really helpful. It covers many of the common things that people want to do. And you can even customize those a little if you want to change specifically what they do. And it offers you the ability to build your own add-in. So if there's one that's not there that you want, you can add your own one so that you can add functionality to Resolve and give your team or your customers extra power. Or of course you can commission us, and usually for quite a small fee we can provide you with an add-in to your specification. So why do we use add-ins? Well, let's have a think about that. Well, first of all, it means that you can extend Resolve as far as you need it. So although the basic Resolve does an awful lot of things for you, it allows you to do tables, filters, and lets you then put that into charts and get reports in Excel and so on. If you want to extend it a bit further by using Resolve Premium and the add-ins that it offers, you can get more out of it and start to do complex analysis and so on. So the first thing that I always like to draw people's attention to when talking about add-ins is not only does it do complex things, but actually it simplifies things that would otherwise be very laborious to do. So there are things you can do, for example, to variables, and if you want to do that perhaps to 10 variables, that can be quite a laborious task. Or you might want to specify a particular type of table, which you could achieve through the system already, but again would be laborious to do. So add-ins are about providing you with your own custom menus that describe what it is you're trying to do so that you can describe it as a user and then get the output that you actually need. And of course, add-ins make complex tasks possible. Most software that does tables has very distinct limits of how far it can go. Sometimes those limits are quite good, other times they're very, very limiting. But this facility allows you to extend Resolve as far as you need it and allows you to do complex tasks. And it allows you to deliver your own algorithm. So if you've got some algorithm that you apply perhaps to advertising data or something like that, produce your own set of analyses using your own formulae, you can build that as something that people can get their hands on using Resolve. And that's pretty unique, I think, to Resolve. So it really does mean that you can meet your customers' exact needs. It's a little bit more, or a lot more in some cases, than what any other system offers. Now, how do we use add-ins? Well, we're going to see that in a second. We're going to look at how you use 3 or 4 add-ins within the system. But before I do that, the first thing to say is there are 2 types of add-ins, and they break down into very distinct groups. And we'll see that in a second when we look at the actual software itself. So there's a group of add-ins that are related to building variables. And sometimes added into that, there are ones where you want to manipulate data, and that might be for all sorts of reasons, such as recoding data, feeding in corrections to data, even carrying out weighting on data. So variable add-ins where you're essentially generating new variables or cleaning existing variables are a first set variable add-ins. And we'll look at some of those in a minute. And then we've got a set of add-ins that apply to the reports and analysis that you do. So they're perhaps producing tables that are either laborious to produce or perhaps do something that's more powerful, and such as something like a summary table is an example there. And that's one that I'll show you in a minute. So without further ado, I'm going to go into the software now and show you around how you use add-ins. So let's start here. Here's a project that's already open in Resolve, and if you've only just want to see the basic things within the Resolve base package, this is not the video for you. So if you haven't actually seen Resolve at all yet, or are not really quite aware of what it does, I'd advise you to do that first. So let's look at some add-ins and see what we can do. And as I said, there's a group of add-ins that apply to variables and data, or producing variables from data, or cleaning existing variables. Now you'll find that set of add-ins on the menu here with the list of variables. So if I click on this list here, you'll see the add-ins that I've actually got installed at the moment. There's about 10 there, I think. And you can see we've got things like an and not variable. So that would be if you wanted to have a variable where you would perhaps want people who have seen advertising for a list of products, but they've not actually bought it. So you have the two variables, seen advertising and bought, but you want to make a new one that's people who have seen it advertising but not actually bought it. Then we've got matrix variable in here, which is where you want to do perhaps two or more variables within each other to perhaps generate age within gender. And you can see there's some other ones here, like adding top two boxes, getting the same codes from variables, perhaps getting a series of top two boxes from a whole list of rating statements. You might want to redefine labels. Perhaps you want to put the text into a chart. You want to perhaps reorder and hide some of the responses so that only the responses you want to see in a table or a chart come out. So you can see there's some things you can do in this list here, or the first part of this list here. And then there's some things here which perhaps are more obviously applying to data, but at the end of the day, they're cleaning variables or generating new variables. So producing rim and target weighting, or using rim and target weighting produces a variable called weight for you. Once you use that tool, you can clean existing data. You can exclude or just include selective records from a run. And there's a tool here for resetting zeros as undefined, which is a bit more specialist. But you can see the list of sort of things you can do here. Let's use one of these. Let's add a matrix variable here. So I'm going to select add a matrix variable. And you can see it pulls up this menu here. So I'm going to pick gender, click OK. I'm going to click age, click OK. Now it asks me whether I want to pick any more variables. I'm not going to pick any more, because what this will give me now is the age groups within the two genders. So no. What do I want to call this? I'm going to call this gender underscore age. Select its type and give it a text of gender within age. Click OK. And I want to save this permanently. So I'm going to say yes. And you can see now that down the bottom here, I have a new variable, gender age. Now what this means is I can go into use, if you like, the standard version, or just using the tools in the standard base version of Resolve. And I could, for example, scroll down here, get that gender age question, drag it to the rows, and perhaps analyze it by banner. And go to run it, add it to a table set, and off I go and run it. Completes my tables, and I can view those tables. And you can see now I've got gender within age, or age within gender down the left hand side. I've got gender and age across the top, so we can actually see that that's all working fine. And Not a very interesting table given the fact I'm just analysing the same thing by itself, but it goes to prove that that particular piece of analysis is working correctly. So that's the first add-in that we've had a look at. We're now going to look at another variable type add-in. So I'm going to close this. And the one I'm going to look at now is a top 2 box. So you can see I've got a rating scale down here at Q7. So I'm going to now choose that add-in. And I'm going to choose the first one here. I'm going to call this new Q7. I'm going to call it Q7 with top 2. Click OK. And what do I want here? Well, the options for this particular add-in are top 2 box only is a 1, and top 2 and bottom 2 box is a 2. Now, if you wanted to extend that further, you could have more options there. Add-ins can be edited and resaved if you like, just like with a save as. So we could extend that list, but I'm just going to go for a top 2 box here. Where do I want to see this? I want it at the top of the table, so I'm going to click a 1 for that. And what codes make that top 2 box? Well, it's those 2 codes there. Click OK. Save it again, and you can see I've got new Q7, which means now I can go into the reports, just as I did before, add a table set this time, and come down here, drag new Q7 into the rows. And if I wanted to, I could also drag gender age into the columns, and I can run that. I won't save it. And I view my tables, and now I've got a table using my 2 variables that I've made now, which has got a top 2 box here of 38%, and within males within the 3 age groups and females within the 3 age groups in my analysis. So I've started to do sort of more complex analysis just using my own menus, and you can see what happens with these add-ins. They're custom menus that you need to understand how to use them, but hopefully they're mainly intuitive. 1 or 2 of the more complex add-ins need a little bit more information and perhaps some notes to guide you through how you use them, perhaps for the first time, but you get the picture of how easy they are to use. They're almost like sort of like custom menus or wizards, perhaps you might call them, to generate what you want. So let's have a look at a couple of add-ins there. As I said, there's a whole bunch of other ones that you can use here. Let's now look at the table one. So I'm going to go back into creating reports. And this time I'm going to define an add-in that I want to use. So the first one I'm going to do is a summary table here. So I'm going to click on Define Add-ins, click on this. Now I right click on here, and you can see I get a list of the different add-ins that I've got. And again, I've got a list of about 10 here. So there's a summary table I can produce as columns, which is perhaps the one I'll demonstrate in a second. There's other tables here, like summary tables as rows, summary of mean scores, summary of numeric values for mean scores, listing data to a CSV file report so that you can manipulate it in Excel or Google Sheets or something like that. Ways to hide low bases, whether that's in rows, columns, or tables. Repercentaging tables so that they're based on the sum of the rows. Applying overall filters and so on. So calculating difference between rows and columns. Producing what's called a profile report. So various add-ins here that are freely available. Of course, as I said before, you can always add new ones to this, or either by generating your own or by getting them customized for you. I'm going to choose the select a summary table as columns, or create a summary table as columns. I'm going to scroll down here. I'm going to pick these 5 questions here, Q71 to Q75. Edit the text. There's the text. I could edit those if I want to. I'm going to put a table title in, so I'm going to call it Q7 Summary. Click OK. I could apply filters and things, but I'm just going to run that as it is now. I'm not going to save it. And you can see I very quickly got a summary table of those 5 rating statements side by side. And of course, if I wanted those to look in Excel, there they are in Excel, and it would be very easy for me to manipulate them if I want to, so that they were in a chart. And of course, there's tools in Resolve Base, which of course are equally available in Resolve Premium, that allow you to do a chart on the back of that automatically, so that you've got that data in a chart by using the chart settings. I've just ran a table here. And let's look at one more add-in here. So I'm now going to add another one. So add another one. And this time I'm going to list some data to a spreadsheet to manipulate it later. So I'm going to pick gender, I'm going to pick age, and I'm going to pick the answer to question 2. Click OK. I don't want it filtered, so 0 means unfiltered. I do want the headings in there for each of the columns in the spreadsheet, so I know what the data is. And I want this listed as text, not as code. So 1 means I'm going to get this as text. Process complete. It's listed all 832 records. And if I go into the folder where I've got this, I can open that file, and you can see that there's the gender, the age, and the preferred brands here that people have selected for that particular question. And of course I can now manipulate this. I could sort this in Excel, I could do pivot tables, I could do what I like with it in Excel now, having produced that CSV file. So I hope this demonstration's given you an idea of how easy they are to use. One or two of the more complex ones need some instructions just to guide you through how you use them, particularly things like target weighting and rim weighting. The whole idea is that you can use the free 20 or so add-ins that we supply, or you can build new add-ins to supply to your team or your customers to do other things that are important to you, or indeed you can commission us to generate add-ins for you, which we can usually generate for a pretty small fee, a one-off small fee. Well, thanks for joining me. I hope this video has been useful to you, and goodbye.